Our budget. Our budget, when you look at your budget, and some of you maybe have never looked at a budget, and so it's hard to set up a budget if you don't know what you're spending. And we'll get into that with the second phrase when we talk about budgeting in itself. But your budget shows how much you trust God. It shows how much you follow the word. It shows how much you take care of the business until Christ returns. Remember, you're a steward. So as you're spending money and as you're writing things out, what if you had to stand before God and say, okay, Lord, you provided this money for me, and this is what I did with it. But you say, I don't know what I did with it. I just spent, and I don't keep track of it. But we are responsible to be good stewards. And part of that shows how do we trust God by giving him the first, shows how much we follow the word, that we are accountable, and it shows how much we take care of business until Christ returns. What else? Who are you? Well, this is an interesting question, and I ask many people, who are you? And I ask myself that, who am I? But let me ask, who are you? If you fail to pay your bills on time and you bring dishonor to Jesus, why? Because you are a what? And what does it say? You are I think it's liar, and thief. Whoa. Why are you a liar and a thief if you don't pay your bills on time? Well, when you buy something, you make an obligation or a contractual agreement to pay it on a certain time. If you fail to do that and you still have the goods or services, you have broken the contract so that you are a liar. And if you never pay for it, you are a thief because you have the services and goods and you didn't pay for them. That kind of action brings dishonor to God. And that's not the way we should be living at all. How do you live? You are either a steward of Jesus or a steward of Satan. I mean, there's no demilitarized zone where it's neutral territory. You are one or the other. There is no middle ground. Romans 12, 1 and 2 says, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercy of God, that you present your body a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. Why is this verse so important? Because many times we are in debt trying to conform to the world. We want to dress like the world, live like the world, and do like the world. And we don't have maybe what the world has. We don't have the backup. We don't have the salary. But yet we want to have this kind of an aura about us that tells people we have arrived. And many times we want to dress and look like them and emulate the world, and we get into debt because we don't have the money to do it. And so many times we take the chances of taking the rent money, the light, gas, and food money, and we'll go to a place like a casino, and we'll put the money down anticipating we'll get money back in order to take care of our business so we can continue to live outside the will of God. But many times that's what caused our falter. So he says, don't be conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So you decide. The Lord makes life simple. We make it complex. We stress over stuff. We love sin. We embrace it, and we pay the cost for it. We want to be the owner and do it our way. But when we step outside the will of God, that is the problem. What else do we do? Matthew 5, 13, 16. We are the salt of the earth. We are the light of the world. So, why aren't you doing your job? Why aren't you doing your job? That could be something to think about right there. What are you willing to give up to live debt-free? You cannot seek the owner's guidance if you are not sure of your real income, expenses, and total debt. Do you keep track of your finances? That means every time you get your check, you have X amount of dollars. Do you track how much you spend and why? And I'm under the, how do I say this? I'm under this strong belief that if people started to track what they spent, they would see where all the extra money is going and nothing is coming in return for that. We had one individual and they had me, I said, track for 30 days. And they came up with this number that they couldn't believe of $600 at McDonald's, and they weren't buying stock. Why? Because they never thought about it, because it was just $2.99 here, $4 there, $5 here. But over the month of just doing that spending with not thinking about it, when you start to track it, you see where that's almost a whole house payment that we have used for fast foods and still weren't filled. Poverty. The desire to please the flesh is costly. No daily devotional time to seek the plan of God. That's costly. Self-centered. It's all about me, myself, and I. Failure to think about or care for those in need. A slave to the system. Those are some of the things that breed poverty. We think that just because I don't have a job, I'm in poverty. But these things, even if you have a job, can put you in poverty because God is not first in your life. Living without a plan, failure to follow biblical teachings, living the future, buy now, pay with, if and when, loves the creation, that's the stuff, more than the creator, allows the world to direct your spending. This causes poverty. I'm never so remiss as individuals who will say, I'm going out to eat, but I can't afford it. And they charge on a charge card. They can't pay the minimum balance, and so they're almost paying because they're late, they're not regular and consistent. They're almost past 20% interest on the credit card and buying things that they really can't afford to have because they allow the world to dictate how they do it. Let's break the cycle. Let Jesus set the plan for every decision. Seek the Lord's will on everything, no matter how small. To be a steward is to follow the word of God without question. Faith must be the focus. Your mind and your action must reflect your love for Jesus. And if you really love Jesus, then all of these things have to come into being. We have to place Jesus first and how he told us to live, even in our spending. Breaking the cycle. If you allow the world to block the message of truth, you will always be a slave. You are a slave to Satan when his worldly stuff comes before the Lord. Everything you do is about yourself, me, myself, and I, and God is not centered, then the spending pattern does not reflect that God is using you to glorify him. Therefore, you're not going to break the cycle. Little bits of the world. So let's have the question. Do you please the Lord or bring glory and honor to him in these situations? Because little things add up. The music you allow in your home, and music is expensive, but it also affects the mind because it goes into our brain. Movies that we watch, stuff that we see. I'm amazed how much people pay for, that silly idiot box in the cable. Every day watching things that do not reflect God. The speech, all the words we say to and about others, how we dress, what we wear, trying to keep up with the world standards, our attitude about everything. It is good neither to eat flesh nor to drink wine nor anything whereby my brother stumbles or is offended or made weak. So we can't just think about ourselves when we buy and look and do. It's about how we give the example to others about living totally in stewardship by God. It's your choice. And when you stand before Jesus and he said, did you feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, shelter to the homeless, clothes to the naked, visit the sick, and visit the prisoners? Did you do those things? And you say, what do you say? I didn't have the money for that? Jesus said, this is where you spend eternity. Based upon how you respond to what Jesus has called you to do with that which he's entrusted in your care will determine where we spend eternity. Success, the key. To live each day as if it were your last day on earth. Now let the Lord set the priorities. Once our mind is set, we are ready to budget. We are ready to plan. We are ready to live on less. Let's take a break. But brace yourself. There's more to come. And we're going to really get into budgeting because now our mind is renewed.